This is the answer video, and please watch the puzzle video first before watching this. You, Gideon, and Matt face Tom in the interrogation room, and Tom's hands are cuffed. Matt tells Tom, "I'm sorry, but we haven't figured out how Joe achieved the locked room murder. What's even worse is, Joe's restaurant has been open for a week. Even if we get the warrant now, we probably won't find any evidence." Tom asks Gideon, "You can't find a solution either?" Gideon holds back his tears. "I'm sorry, but I've tried my best." Tom lowers his head for a long while, and finally he raises his head. "Okay, thank you. Please visit me in prison when you have time." Tom is taken away. You gaze at his back and feel a lump growing in your throat. When you walk out of the room, you see Tom's girlfriend Sarah cry her eyes out. She says, "I heard he'll be in jail for at least 10 years. I'll wait for him to come out and marry him." Gideon walks to his car without a word and drives you to his office. You say, "I figured out how Joe achieved the locked room murder." You notice Gideon is slightly shaking. "No, it's impossible for Joe to achieve the locked room murder." Okay, you pretend to agree with him, but keep thinking the ins and outs of this case. Joe resented both Tom and Daddy and came up with an idea to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He had worked for Daddy for 5 years and knew there's a room without window and can be locked from the inside at Daddy's home. So he told Daddy he'll bring unconscious Tom to Daddy's home. Then he invited Tom to his restaurant and drugged Tom. After Tom became unconscious, he put on gloves, grabbed Tom's hands to hold the murder knife and leave fingerprints. He wore the shoes identical to Daddy's and brought Tom to Daddy's home. That's why only Tom's fingerprints have been found on the knife, and only Tom's and Daddy's shoe prints have been found in that room. There's no evidence that he had been there. After he put Tom in that room, he pretended to leave. When Daddy walked him to the door but they were still inside the room, he used an excuse to make Daddy take Daddy's cell phone out of the pocket and grab the phone to prevent Daddy from calling somebody for help. Then he took out the murder knife, slashed Short Daddy for several times, threw the knife in the room, stepped out of the room, took out another weapon and said, "If you don't lock the door, I'll kill you." Daddy locked the room immediately, so only Daddy's fingerprints have been found on the door lock. Joe imported the file of footsteps sound to Daddy's phone, set the playtime, and left quietly. Daddy heard the footsteps sound outside the door and thought Joe was still there. He was seriously injured so that he couldn't cry out for help, and he didn't dare to go out. In the end, he bled to death. After Joe left Daddy's home, he made the police report. He knew how long the effects of the drug would last and deliberately made the police arrive there before Tom woke up and after the footstep sound stopped. So the locked room was confirmed by the police and Tom became the only suspect. "Are you okay?" Gideon's shaky voice interrupts your thinking. You enter the office with him, take a deep breath and say, "I know the breach of non-disclosure agreement will cost me 10 years' salary, but I've decided to pay it for Tom." Gideon goggles at you. "What are you talking about?" You reply, "I know you found some evidence in the arrest room of Joe's restaurant. Why didn't you give the evidence to Matt?" Gideon is stunned. You continue saying, "Tom is your best friend. How can you cheat him over and over again and see him go to jail? Please save him. Please." Tears run down Gideon's cheeks. He squats down and cries like a little boy. "I want to save him too, but I can't let the police solve the case. I can't let the story end. Before I was 7, I had a happy family. My dad had worked at a gift company and had always brought toys to me. My mom had told me bedtime stories. When I was 7, my mom started to read a detective storybook to me. The police in the story couldn't catch the criminal for a long time, so I was looking forward to know who the criminal was. At the end of the story, the criminal was finally caught, and I was very happy. But the next morning, I woke up and couldn't find my mom. She didn't come back after a week, and a classmate said she had run away with another man. My classmates started to bully me. My father became a drunkard. I had lived a miserable life for 4 years until Tom transferred to our school and became my bodyguard. 5 years ago, I helped Tom handle the case for the first time. When I found the key evidence, I suddenly felt out of breath, so I hid the truth and let the case become unsolved. There had been many times Tom had almost solved the cases, and I had been scared to see cases solved. Therefore, I resigned from the job at investment bank and became a private detective. Gideon pauses for a moment and says, I didn't become a detective for solving cases. Instead, I became a detective for creating unsolved cases. I can't let the police solve the case. I can't let the story end. Mommy will leave me. No, no. You calm him down and say, I believe when your parents named you Gideon, they expected you to be a warrior. Be a warrior, Gideon. The next day, Gideon gives Matt the fingerprints he found on the toilet brush handle. Matt gets a search warrant and has found the shoes identical to Daddy's at Joe's home. The substance found on the shoes proves that Joe had into that room. Joe confesses that he told Daddy Tom often messed with Daddy and refused to take bribes. He will drug Tom and leave Tom to Daddy. Daddy happily agreed. After Tom is released, he gives Gideon a tight hug. Gideon weeps with joy, and you feel happy for them. After a while, Gideon takes a deep breath and says to Tom, I've got something to tell you privately, and it's about the previous cases. They walk out and you can't hear what they say, but you feel the sunshine today is especially bright.